Hello again, and welcome to another Isadora tutorial. Now, in this tutorial, what I'm going to do is show you how to do some very basic mapping. If you look at the studio right now, you will see that I set up a very sophisticated little thing for us to map on. It's a coat hanger with a couple pieces of scrap paper taped to it. Now, you could, of course, map to something that is not a coat hanger, but the coat hanger, it tends to do the job. So, for our purposes, that's what we're going to use. So let's go back to the main screen here of Isadora, and we'll actually start from scratch this time for a little refresher. If you already know how to do all this stuff, feel free to just skip ahead, and I will try to note when you can skip to. That brings you right up to the point where we start the mapping. Now, here we go. As this is the main screen here, there's a couple things I've already done. From last time, we do have stage 3 here. Stage 2 is still set up to the main projector, and stage 1 is set up to the monitor that we have right in the studio there. Now, just to remind you how you can do that, I'll just move this out of the way. We would go to Isadora, Preferences, and adjust our settings here on the stage. As you can see, display 2 is for stage 1. Display 2 in this case corresponds to being my monitor in the studio. Stage 2 in this case is my projector in the studio. Stage 3, which is using display 4, is an additional display I brought on just so that you can actually see me. Now, of course, you can't see me quite yet. So in order to do that, you will bring in the video in watcher to activate the live stream, pair it with a projector, assign it to stage 3, connect the video to the video. Now, let's work with putting an image into the program. So the first thing I'm going to do is just start by importing some media. So I'll move this out of the way here. Now I have imported a few files here just from the internet, and I'll pull them up here. These are the same files that I was working with more or less last time, but we'll just use different ones because you can see a different texture with it. So now we've got some pictures to play with. You can of course use video for this too, but in this case we'll just use pictures. I will show you how you can just quickly fix that and turn to video if you should want to do that. Now the next thing we'll need, of course, is a projector. We're actually going to bring in 2 projectors because I'm going to want to have a display for the screen there and for the main one. And we'll start there. So just so we can refresh on how we see the different stages working together, I'll bring in the picture player, pull up the first picture here, and connect that to the video. So now if we look to the studio, you can see the entire galaxy is on the wall. And now I'm going to switch it to the first stage. And now if you look, it's just on the monitor there. So wall, monitor. In this case, I'm going to put this one on the monitor just because it's a little bit easier to see the next image, which I'll bring up, another picture player. On the big stage here. Now, as you can see, I've got these rocks going on right over on the main studio wall using the projector. And so now we're going to work with how to actually map. And mapping in Isadora Can be complicated, can be easy. We're going to do something very easy here. This is a very basic way that you can map. And essentially, in this case, all mapping really means is resizing to a specific image. So I'm going to make a couple small changes here. I want to put the galaxy now onto the main projector. And I'm actually going to keep the rocks on the projector too. So if you look at the studio now, you'll see a kind of a layered image. You've got the rocks, and you've also got the galaxy going on. Now, if you look here, you'll have to note two things. One is that the projectors, both this one here and this one here, are set up to stage 2. Ultimately, this third stage up here doesn't really matter right now. That's just so you can see me, so let's not even worry about it. In fact, I'm going to move it out of the way so we can just focus on these two. So now what we want to do is adjust the layers. So watching on the main screen here, this is what happens if we change the layers. As you can see, not very much. So if that's not going to be what's going to help us, really what we should be working on is just adjusting the overall stage itself. So from here, what I'd recommend doing is working with the projector. This can sometimes be a bit hard to see. So what I'm going to do is actually just bring in a shape. So just a standard shape. I'm going to disconnect this one, which is the stone image. So we just go back to the galaxy. And I'm going to connect this to shape. General shape here. Now, this is an interesting thing because you can actually see, and I'll move the shape around so you can see that a little bit more. But if you look closely, you can see that the shape itself is behind the coat rack. And it's only when it comes just a little bit over that we actually see it on the coat rack. And of course, the size changes considerably. Now, the reason for this is purely because that coat rack right there is just closer. Now, projection is just light, so that means that if this object is closer, it's going to cast a different image. It's ultimately the same image, but it will seem a lot bigger on the big wall there. So rather than playing with the shape so much, I'm going to actually reset these to their default values, which I believe was set at 12. Oh, that's 120. 12. And working with this, I'm going to do something a little bit different. So that's just to bring us back to where we were. Now, if I were going to work with this in order to get a good idea of how to map it, what I'd want to do is actually make this as big as possible. It should take up the entire screen. So overall, the width should be about 100. And let's make sure that our scale is correct. Can go up to 200, so let's put this at 200. And our height should also be at 200. So now I've just got this big white light to work with. Now that I have a very basic image that I can work with, I'm just going to start adjusting my projector. So what I'll want to do is work with adjusting the width, the height, and the zoom. The first thing to do is adjust the width. And as you can see in the studio, this is actually changing on the wall too. You can see I actually cut onto and off of that little white scrap paper I'm using. So I want to contain this so that it is just on the paper, or at least as close as I can get with this kind of crude setup I have. So I've adjusted the width to 45. Now, that's not going to really work when we see here because we've got this massive image behind us. So, let's play here with the horizontal position. We want to kind of center it here. Now I can adjust the width even smaller. Essentially what I'm aiming for is to make it seem like this is only happening on that piece of paper and nowhere else. So there I'm adjusting the height, the vertical position. Now I will start to adjust the height. As I'm doing this, I'll just mention that these are all things that you could animate throughout if you wanted to have a moving square in a galaxy for some reason. Or whatever image you want to use too, which we'll see in just a second. So now I'm just going to keep playing here until I get roughly the vertical and horizontal position. So this all starts to line up where I need it to be. As you can see, it can be a little bit deceptive. Because what seems like it makes a lot of sense on screen, or rather when we're watching it in the studio looking at the back screen, might not actually be the case in terms of how the light is cast. But I'm gradually getting closer. That's actually pretty good there. Just going to widen it out a little bit more. Not much more. That should probably do it. And shift that over a little bit. That's a little bit too much. So, as you can see, that gives you a basic idea of how you get that image. So now this projector is only projecting on that point. I've got the shape. I don't have to use this shape, but if I wanted to, I could of course use this, change the color to whatever I like, make it work. Now white light will always actually wash out the best. See, if I select white here, it's very solid color. Green, we're only starting to, it's still solid, but if I were to go to say cyan here, still quite solid actually. If I go to black, black light is going to come across as a negative, meaning we're not really going to see it. Here, even with the yellow, you can still look closely and you can see that the stars are still there. So, we have to just acknowledge that's the way this is going to go and work with it. So, now then, before this, I actually had a picture. So let's see what happens when I take away this color and I bring that picture back on. As you can see, now the picture is just right there on the paper. It's only really showing up on the paper. Of course, the issue now is that I've got this whole situation where I can still see the stars. So what happens if I then connect the video here to the same projector? Thing is, I can't do that. Well, I can, but it may not give me the right angle. Let's just check out what actually happens. So here, I've done it. It's not giving me the effect I want. Now all I'm seeing really is yellow. So, I'm going to clear that. And it's given an unexpected response there where it's pretty much overshadowed that one altogether. But of course, this is Isadora, and we can have as many of anything as we want. So we'll just make another projector with the exact same dimensions. And we will attach this same one to it. We'll make that white again to really wash everything out. And from here, I I can start working with the intensity to modify so you gradually are not seeing so much the stars. Ultimately, the stars are still there. But as I play with this, I can make it seem like they're a little bit less. Or just make it glow if I should want to, too, which is a simple effect to do. Actually, for fun, let's just make it glow. So I'm just going to quickly add a little glow effect to it. And if you remember, this can be done using something called a wave generator. And here it's going from 0 to 100, sorry. So I'm going to actually make that a little bit less. We're going to go from 0 to, let's make it only about, what do we have at right now? Currently our intensity is at 36, which is pretty good. So let's only go up to 36. That's as high as it goes. And as you can see, it's going to go up. You can watch the numbers here. It's like it doesn't have that steady curve, but we can also just decrease the frequency a little bit to make it a little bit more steady. Or speed it up too, whatever may give us a function. Either way, I'm just going to connect that to the intensity. And now we've got a little flashing effect happening. There, I've just changed it to only come up to 30. So now I've got this little glowing rock thing that I can use for whatever I might want to, and we can of course change that into something else if we want. If we would like, we can also play a video. So what I'm going to do now is take this little projector here. I'm going to copy it, paste, and I'm going to pull up a video in Watcher. And now I'm going to put my live stream onto that same spot. So if you look, you'll be able to see that I'm now also up there. If we really want to make me a bit more clear, there's a couple things we can do. One of them may be adding an effect. One of them may be to also just double up, which in this case is going to be the most simple thing to do and the quickest thing to do. Now keep in mind, the quickest thing to do is not always the best thing to do, but for the purposes of just playing here, we can do that. And I can bring the intensity down on this projector a little bit. As you can see, it's becoming a little bit more clear there. If I were to turn this one off, I'm a lot more clear. So those are some ways that you can map using Isadora. Isadora may not be always the best for this purpose, but you certainly can use it. The good thing about this program is you can actually pair it with other programs using Siphon. And if you do that, you can use professional mapping tools to get the exact need that you have. Another thing you can do is you can also create masks. So you can create images that you've custom designed to go up onto the screen here. And that's probably one of the best surefire ways to get things going. It's a little bit less customizable, but if you're strapped for time, if you're strapped for budget, it is a way to work. So you can come into the studio, you can do this kind of work here, and just like before, if you were to have to move it when you get into the theater or wherever you're working, it's just as simple as making minor adjustments on the projector, causing things like this to happen, or this. As you can see, very easy. I can add animation, do whatever I like. As I dip over here, now I'm just in the galaxy, and then I can come back and be back in space, so to speak.